I started this plot of Still Life with Meaning, a work from the Versum collection during the New Year's night. First, I cut this 4 deckled edges sheet of Archer's watercolor paper into a square. One of the things I had to develop for that plot was the ability to add a plotting style to my layers. The first style I made was stippling. I've used it for the sky background. It ended up being insanely long, something like a 10-hour long job. All worth it though, that texture is just so beautiful. Next 3 jobs were about painting the background values from a light grey to darker one. The process required a number of pauses to refill the cartridge, which are always a process to go through carefully. I faced an issue with the ink not flowing well along those long strokes. That made me come up with another plotting style, which triggers a up-down event every, say, 3 centimeters. So the next layers went very well, filling up the very large page with a consistent ink flow. On top of that background, the actual line art could start. Watching the plotter trace those long diagonals blades of grass across the entire drawing was very cathartic. My work is generally a combination of those 2 things, a background shading and a contouring line art. The lines are supposed to define the shapes and help make sense of the background. But here, the background, made with a 1.2mm nib, was too rough and resulted in a number of imprecisions that I kept fixing manually while the plotter was at work. I gave the monoliths a light background. You see me following the pen with a paper towel to wipe up the small dots of ink. After that, I took care of those very fat strokes around the monoliths, which required some code to simulate a 2.5mm nib with an actual 0.6mm pen. The drawing continued with the contours of the branches, then the outlines of those dark leaves. Drawing strokes on top of an already painted watercolor paper tends to alter their quality, not as sharp as I expected. Yet I kept going with those wavy patterns on the monoliths that help define their volume. Some hatch patterns on the leaves with variable densities add some detail and some diversity in the values. I kept adding some manual touches with a brush. It felt like being the robot's assistant actually. Eventually, I fixed some contouring strokes with some code that goes back and forth until it reaches the right stroke weight. And we were done. The moment you take out the magnets and remove the sheet, you can't go back. Look at this beauty. It took me the 4 first days of the year. Well, I knew it from the beginning. I didn't like it. It wasn't the quality that I look up to. So I started over. And that is another story.